The temple courtyard was silent, the morning mist still clinging to the stones, when Thomas Reed said, "Ethan Cole has lost his path." The words fell heavy, striking like a sudden crack of thunder in still air. The young monk Ethan Cole froze, his breath faltering as the weight of the master's words struck his chest. Narration revealed how Ethan's heart raced, as if his years of meditation were crumbling into dust. The sky seemed to darken in his mind, shadows creeping into the edges of his thoughts. Thomas Reed spoke softly, yet each word echoed like a gong, shaking Ethan's fragile confidence. Ethan whispered, "I thought I was walking toward harmony." His voice carried the tremor of despair. Narration described how the other disciples stood stunned, their gazes shifting, but no one spoke. Silence deepened, louder than any roar, pressing against Ethan's chest. Thomas Reed said, "The one who clings is already astray." His calm tone cut sharper than any blade. Narration carried the scene forward, showing Ethan bowing his head, torn between shame and a desperate hunger for answers. Narration described Ethan Cole walking slowly from the courtyard, his sandals dragging across the stones. His heart pounded, each beat like a drum of failure. Samuel Hayes followed quietly, but his lips did not move. Ethan Cole whispered, "Why has the master declared me lost?" The words tasted like ash on his tongue. Narration showed how Samuel Hayes looked at him with pity, yet silence was his reply. Ethan Cole felt the weight of unseen eyes, the courtyard walls pressing closer, suffocating. His mind echoed with Thomas Reed's calm words, "The one who clings is already astray." He felt broken, yet his pride still fought against despair. His eyes darted to Samuel Hayes, but the disciple offered no comfort. Narration carried the silence forward, showing Ethan's desperate hunger for someone to tell him he was not lost. Narration revealed Ethan Cole retreating to his quarters, his steps unsteady. Inside the dim room, he sank to the floor, hands pressed to his temples. He whispered, "Harmony is slipping from me." His voice cracked. He saw shadows stretching across the walls, his past doubts rising like smoke. The silence of the chamber pressed harder than any voice. He clenched his fists, his breath harsh, his robe damp with morning dew. He remembered Thomas Reed's face, calm yet unyielding. He cried out, "What am I missing?" His words vanished into stone. The room echoed his despair, its emptiness reflecting his inner void. Narration described Samuel Hayes entering the room quietly, his footsteps soft. He looked at Ethan Cole with gentle eyes. Samuel Hayes said, "The master's words are not punishment but a mirror." Ethan raised his head, anger flashing. He replied, "A mirror shows me broken." Samuel Hayes shook his head, speaking calmly, "A mirror shows what is, not what will be." Narration showed Ethan trembling, torn between fury and desperation. His voice cracked, "Why can't I see peace?" The air hung heavy, filled with tension between two disciples bound by silence and struggle. Narration revealed Thomas Reed standing at the doorway, silent yet commanding. His gray robe flowed softly as light framed his figure. Ethan Cole's heart dropped, shame flooding him. Thomas Reed said, "Peace is not found in seeking approval." Ethan lowered his gaze, whispering, "Then I have been blind." Samuel Hayes remained still, his breath shallow. Narration carried the moment into silence, as Thomas Reed added, "Blindness ends when the eye no longer searches." Ethan trembled, his spirit breaking open. The room felt vast and crushing, yet also alive with unseen possibility. Narration described Ethan Cole walking alone by the temple pond, the surface reflecting gray skies. His chest felt heavy, weighed by the echo of Thomas Reed's words. Ethan whispered, "Am I truly astray?" The sound seemed to vanish into the mist. The silence mocked him, louder than any reply. Samuel Hayes appeared near the edge of the path, his eyes gentle yet distant. He said softly, "The master's words are not to condemn but to awaken." Ethan turned sharply, anger rising within his trembling voice. "Then why do they sound like a death sentence?" Narration revealed Samuel Hayes watching him with patience, his calmness reflecting what Ethan could not yet grasp. Ethan clenched his fists, staring into the pond, seeing ripples of a face he no longer recognized. The weight of failure pressed upon him, the stillness of the pond showing him his inner storm. Narration showed Ethan Cole returning to the meditation hall, yet the calm atmosphere burned against his restless thoughts. He sat cross-legged, but his breathing was shallow, his eyes darting. Thomas Reed entered silently, his steps slow and deliberate. He said, "Peace comes when one stops forcing the mind." Ethan's chest tightened, his voice bitter as he whispered, "I cannot stop. My mind is fire." The hall grew tense as other disciples shifted uneasily. Samuel Hayes closed his eyes, offering quiet presence. Narration carried Ethan's growing panic, every breath feeling like a storm trapped in his lungs. Thomas Reed's face remained calm, his eyes piercing yet compassionate. "Then let the fire burn until only ash remains," he said. Ethan trembled, his body rigid, feeling the weight of surrender pressing upon him. Narration carried Ethan Cole outside after the session, where the rain began to fall lightly. He looked upward, droplets running down his face, mixing with the warmth of tears. He muttered, "The harder I reach, the further peace slips away." From behind, Daniel Lee said, "You strangle peace by chasing it." Ethan turned, startled by Daniel Lee's steady tone. His lips curled with bitterness, replying, "Easy words for one who does not carry my burden." Daniel Lee shook his head, voice low, "Every man carries a burden. The difference lies in whether we fight or release." Narration revealed Ethan's frustration swelling as the rain drenched his robe, each drop heavy like judgment. He turned away, unable to face Daniel Lee's calmness. Narration described Ethan Cole moving into the garden where cherry blossoms swayed gently despite the drizzle. He sat beneath a tree, head resting against the trunk. His heart whispered despair, "I have failed the Master. I have failed myself." From the shadows emerged Sophia Clark, her steps quiet. She spoke softly, "Failure is not the end but the beginning of seeing clearly." Ethan raised his head, eyes narrowed, trembling with disbelief. "What clarity lies in being called lost?" he asked. Sophia Clark's gaze was calm, her words steady. "The forest does not curse a tree for falling. It simply grows around it." Narration revealed Ethan stunned, his lips parting but no words emerging. The blossoms fell around him, each petal carrying weight like unspoken truth. Narration revealed nightfall over the temple, lanterns glowing faintly in the courtyard. Ethan Cole sat alone on the stone steps, his body slouched. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Perhaps I am not meant for this path." The silence swallowed his words until Thomas Reed approached. The Master's presence was calm yet powerful. He said, "The path is not yours to own. It is the ground beneath your feet." Ethan lifted his eyes, searching for meaning, but doubt clouded his vision. "Then why do I feel so empty?" he asked. Thomas Reed looked at him, steady and unwavering, "Because you cling to what should be let go." Narration showed Ethan shivering, lantern light flickering across his face, revealing both fear and fragile hope. Narration revealed dawn breaking over the temple, pale sunlight struggling against gray clouds. Ethan Cole sat in the meditation hall, his legs aching as he tried to hold still. His thoughts swarmed like restless birds. Thomas Reed entered silently, placing a small bowl before Ethan. He said, "Count every breath until the bowl is empty." Ethan bowed, yet inside his chest rose dread. His breaths came uneven, shallow, already slipping into chaos. Samuel Hayes watched from the corner, calm yet concerned. Ethan whispered under his breath, "This task will undo me." His eyes burned as the weight of silence pressed harder. Thomas Reed said firmly, "A river carves mountains, not with force but with patience." Ethan clenched his jaw, his heart unwilling to yield. Narration described his trembling shoulders, his struggle between obedience and despair. Narration carried Ethan Cole deeper into the exercise, his chest rising unevenly as sweat beaded on his forehead. The bowl seemed endless, his breath slipping like sand between fingers. Thomas Reed's calm eyes followed, yet he spoke nothing. Ethan's mind screamed, "I cannot." His lips parted, breath ragged, body trembling. Samuel Hayes whispered softly, "Release control, and let the air carry you." Ethan snapped, anger flashing, easy to say when peace sits in your chest. The silence that followed pressed like iron. Narration described Ethan's hands gripping his knees, his fingernails biting into skin. His pride clashed with his despair, tearing him apart from within. Narration revealed Ethan Cole storming out of the meditation hall, his robe brushing against stone walls. Rain clouds gathered outside, mirroring his turmoil. He muttered, "This practice breaks me." From the walkway, Daniel Lee watched quietly. He said, "Breaking may be what is needed." Ethan turned, eyes sharp with defiance. "You call this wisdom? To shatter a man in search of peace?" Daniel Lee's tone was steady. To shatter pride is to free the heart. Ethan's chest heaved, torn between fury and despair. Narration showed how Daniel Lee's steady eyes reflected Ethan's storm, revealing two paths colliding. The rain began to fall, soft but insistent, as if the sky itself wept for Ethan's struggle. Narration described Ethan Cole wandering into the temple's inner garden, drenched in rain. His robe clung to his skin, his breath harsh. He collapsed beneath a pine tree, whispering, "I am losing myself." The sound barely reached beyond his lips. From the path, Sophia Clark approached slowly, her eyes filled with compassion. She said, "To lose yourself is to step closer to truth." Ethan raised his head, drenched hair clinging to his brow, disbelief clear in his eyes. "You speak riddles," he said bitterly. Sophia Clark replied softly, "Sometimes riddles are the only language that can reach the heart." Narration revealed petals drifting from branches above, each falling like a silent witness to Ethan's torment. Narration revealed night descending over the temple grounds, lanterns glowing faintly against darkness. Ethan Cole sat on the steps of the main hall, body hunched, spirit broken. Thomas Reed approached, carrying quiet authority. He said, "The storm within you is not your enemy." Ethan's lips quivered, his voice breaking. "Then why does it destroy me?" Thomas Reed's expression remained calm, his words deliberate, "Because you fight it instead of bowing to its power." Samuel Hayes stood in the shadows, silent witness to the exchange. Narration carried Ethan's silence, the lanterns flickering like fragile hope. He lowered his head, the weight of surrender pressing close but not yet reached. Narration revealed the temple cloaked in evening shadows as Ethan Cole sat trembling before Thomas Reed. His breaths were shallow, his heart restless. Thomas Reed's eyes glowed with calm intensity. He said, "Your suffering is not in failure but in expectation." Ethan lifted his head, confusion twisting across his face. He whispered, "Expectation?" The word felt like a stone in his throat. Thomas Reed nodded gently. "You cling to perfection, and it strangles peace." Ethan's shoulders shook, realization dawning like slow fire. Samuel Hayes stood quietly behind, his silence heavier than words. The whole silence became an ocean, carrying Ethan into deeper reflection. His pride faltered, and fear of letting go stirred in his chest. Narration showed how Ethan felt stripped bare, as though the walls of the temple had dissolved to expose his heart. Narration carried Ethan Cole into the courtyard, his steps unsteady. He felt the words of Thomas Reed echo like distant thunder. Sophia Clark appeared near the blossoming tree, her eyes soft with quiet wisdom. She said, "You do not suffer because you failed the path, you suffer because you believe peace must look perfect." Ethan stared at her, his chest heaving. "Then, what is peace if not perfection?" His voice cracked. Sophia Clark smiled faintly. "Peace is the falling leaf, not the tree standing tall." Narration revealed how Ethan's heart broke open, the metaphor unsettling him. His mind grasped at the meaning, yet fear and hope collided within him. The courtyard air felt alive with revelation, yet heavy with doubt. Narration described Ethan Cole returning to his quarters where shadows stretched long across wooden floors. He sat against the wall, his mind churning. A faint knock came, and Daniel Lee entered. His presence was firm yet compassionate. Daniel Lee said, "You fear losing what never belonged to you." Ethan looked up, his eyes wide. "What do you mean?" he asked. Daniel Lee's voice was steady. "Peace cannot be possessed. It is not a prize. It is the ground you sit on, the air you breathe." Ethan's lips trembled, his pride resisting yet his heart beginning to soften. Narration carried the weight of Daniel Lee's words into Ethan's soul, unsettling the chains of control that bound him. The silence that followed was profound, pressing Ethan towards surrender. Narration revealed Ethan Cole wandering through the temple garden at midnight, the air still and heavy with silence. Lanterns flickered faintly among the trees. A figure appeared briefly in the shadows. Michael Grant, a traveler who rarely lingered. His eyes were mysterious, his presence unsettling. Michael Grant said, "You seek to capture the wind with closed fists." Ethan froze, startled by the stranger's sudden words. He asked, "Who are you to speak of my torment?" Michael Grant's lips curled into a faint smile, one who knows that holding on is the surest way to lose. Narration carried Ethan's silence, his mind shaken. As quickly as Michael Grant appeared, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving Ethan trembling with the paradox of his words. Narration described Ethan Cole returning to the meditation hall before dawn, unable to sleep. Thomas Reed sat already in stillness, his presence like a mountain. Ethan bowed deeply, his voice breaking. "I see now my chains are of my own making." Thomas Reed opened his eyes, calm and steady. He said, "Then you have already stepped beyond them." Ethan trembled, tears falling freely as he whispered, "I thought I was broken." Thomas Reed's gaze softened. "You were never broken, only holding on to the illusion of being whole." Narration revealed Ethan's heart bursting open, the unseen truth unraveling his despair. In that moment, the hall seemed to breathe with him, silence transforming into a living presence. Narration revealed the temple at dawn, heavy clouds gathering as thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. Ethan Cole sat cross-legged on the courtyard stones, his body trembling with exhaustion. His chest heaved as though every breath were war. Thomas Reed stood before him, still and calm as a mountain. He said, "The storm is not outside you, Ethan Cole, it is within you." Ethan lifted his eyes, filled with tears, whispering, "It is destroying me." Thomas Reed's voice rang clear, "Then let it destroy what must be destroyed." Ethan gasped as the words pierced his pride. Samuel Hayes and Daniel Lee watched from the walkway, silent and still. Narration revealed Ethan's body shaking violently, his mind collapsing under the weight of surrender. Narration described Ethan Cole, collapsing forward, his palms pressed against the cold stones. His tears mixed with rain as he cried, "I cannot hold on any longer." The storm above cracked with lightning, mirroring his breaking spirit. Thomas Reed said, "Then release what you cling to." Ethan's chest convulsed as his pride dissolved into helplessness. His voice broke, "I am nothing." Silence followed, yet within it, the weight of truth glowed. Sophia Clark entered the courtyard quietly, blossoms clinging to her robe. She said gently, "To be nothing is to be free." Narration carried Ethan's sobs echoing through the courtyard, each one loosening chains bound deep within his soul. Narration revealed Ethan Cole's body trembling as the storm poured down, his face lifted skyward, rain washing his tears away. He whispered, "I surrender." The words left his lips like fragile wings. Thomas Reed's gaze softened, and he said, "In surrender, peace is born." The storm thundered louder, yet within Ethan's heart, a stillness began to grow. Daniel Lee said from the walkway, "He has broken free." Samuel Hayes whispered, "No, he has been freed." Narration showed Ethan's chest rising calmly for the first time in days, the chains of perfection falling away. The storm that had raged within him dissolved into a quiet clarity. Narration revealed silence descending within the storm, as if the air itself bowed. Ethan Cole lowered his hands, breathing evenly, his eyes glowing with a faint clarity. Sophia Clark said softly, "Do you feel it now?" Ethan nodded slowly, whispering, "Peace was always here, waiting beneath my struggle." Thomas Reed's calm voice carried across the rain. The seeker disappears when the truth is seen. Ethan bowed low, his forehead touching the wet stone. His body no longer trembled, only breathed with ease. Narration showed the disciples watching in awe, their faces illuminated by the storm's fading light. The moment hung eternal, a transformation complete. Narration revealed the storm fading, dawn light piercing clouds, painting the temple in golden hues. Ethan Cole rose slowly, his face peaceful, though his robe clung wet to his body. He whispered, "I am no longer lost." Thomas Reed's eyes shone with quiet pride as he said, "You were never lost, only blind." Samuel Hayes bowed his head, his lips murmuring, "At last." Daniel Lee's steady gaze glowed with respect. Sophia Clark smiled faintly, blossoms falling around her like blessings. Narration carried the scene into profound silence as Ethan's heart finally rested. He stood tall, the weight gone, replaced by clarity and surrender. The air itself seemed lighter, the world renewed with him. Narration described the temple after the storm, morning sunlight streaming across wet stone paths. Ethan Cole walked slowly, his steps light, no longer carrying the heaviness of despair. Birds sang softly from the garden trees. Samuel Hayes walked beside him, his face calm. Samuel Hayes said, "The storm has left you different." Ethan nodded, his lips forming a faint smile. "The storm has left me free." Narration revealed his shoulders relaxed, his breath steady, the burden of perfection gone. Thomas Reed watched from the hall entrance, his expression serene, his eyes reflecting quiet pride. The temple no longer felt suffocating but alive, filled with stillness that breathed with him. Ethan Cole touched the bark of a tree, whispering, "Peace was always here." Narration revealed Ethan Cole entering the garden where cherry blossoms glistened with dew. Sophia Clark stood quietly, her hands clasped before her. She said softly, "Your eyes are different." Ethan looked at her with warmth. "I no longer search for perfection," he said. "I have found peace in imperfection." Sophia Clark smiled faintly, her gaze filled with compassion. Narration showed Ethan standing still, blossoms drifting around him, no longer restless. The sound of water trickling from a nearby fountain echoed like a hymn. The weight of struggle had dissolved, replaced by the gentle rhythm of acceptance. Narration carried Ethan Cole to the meditation hall where disciples sat in silence. "Well," he joined them, his body steady, his breath even. For the first time, silence did not crush him. It embraced him. Daniel Lee glanced at him briefly, noting the calm in his eyes. Daniel Lee whispered, "You have found the ground beneath your feet." Ethan bowed his head gently. Narration revealed Thomas Reed, observing quietly from the front, his lips forming the faintest smile. The stillness of the hall glowed with unity. Ethan closed his eyes, no longer seeking, no longer fighting. Peace breathed within him as naturally as air. Narration revealed evening, falling as lanterns flickered across the temple grounds. "Ita be Christi." Ethan Cole walked the path alone, the cool wind brushing his robe. The world no longer felt heavy but vibrant, each sound alive. He paused near the pond, the surface reflecting the lantern light. Thomas Reed approached quietly, standing beside him. He said, "The pond reflects the sky, yet it holds no attachment." Ethan's lips curved gently. "And so must I." Thomas Reed nodded, his gaze glowing with approval. Narration described Ethan breathing deeply, the world within him and around him finally united. The night carried no fear, only stillness. Narration revealed the temple resting under stars, silence deeper than words. Ethan Cole sat beneath a tall pine tree, the night breeze rustling softly. Samuel Hayes, Daniel Lee, and Sophia Clark approached, sitting near him. None spoke, for words were no longer needed. Ethan whispered, "Peace was always within me. I only needed to let go." The group sat together in quiet harmony, their breaths aligned with the stillness of night. Narration showed Thomas Reed watching from afar, his heart steady with pride. The temple pulsed with a quiet life. The journey of despair transformed into serenity. Narration revealed dawn breaking with a soft golden glow over the temple mountains. Ethan Cole walked along the ridge path, his robe brushing the dew-kissed grass. The storm of his heart was gone, replaced with silence, alive with meaning. He paused to watch the rising sun, its light spilling across valleys below. Samuel Hayes joined quietly, his footsteps steady. Samuel Hayes said, "You seem lighter than the wind itself." Ethan whispered, "The wind carries me now, not my burden." Narration described his eyes filled with awe, no longer clouded with searching. Together they stood in stillness, sharing a peace that required no more questions. Narration carried Ethan Cole back into the temple courtyard where cherry blossoms drifted gently in the breeze. Sophia Clark was kneeling near the tree, arranging fallen petals. She looked up and said softly, "Your silence speaks louder than your words ever did." Ethan bowed his head gently, his lips curving with quiet gratitude. "The silence is no longer emptiness," he said, "it is home." Narration described Sophia Clark's faint smile as she watched blossoms circle around him, her gaze filled with quiet reverence. The courtyard seemed transformed, each sound resonating like a hymn of stillness. Narration showed Ethan Cole entering the meditation hall, where disciples already sat in silence. He took his place among them, cross-legged and calm. For the first time, the hall felt like an extension of his breath, not a cage. Daniel Lee glanced at him briefly, his voice a whisper, "The storm has become the river." Ethan nodded gently, his lips forming no reply. Narration described Thomas Reed seated at the front, his eyes resting softly on Ethan, with quiet approval. No words were spoken, for the silence carried everything. The stillness in the hall became radiant, filled with unity and peace. Narration revealed night approaching, stars slowly piercing the dark sky. Ethan Cole sat alone by the pond, the reflection of the moon rippling with each breeze. His voice was soft, carried only to the water. "I am not lost. I am here." The words dissolved into the air, more prayer than statement. Thomas Reed appeared behind him, standing still in silence. Narration carried the moment. Ethan did not look back, for he no longer needed reassurance. The pond's reflection shimmered like truth itself. Peace radiated from his still frame, the journey's storm fully dissolved into calm eternity. Narration revealed the final morning of the cycle, the temple glowing beneath a rising sun. Disciples gathered in silence, but Ethan Cole remained on the hillside above them. His gaze stretched toward the horizon, golden light painting his face. He whispered softly, "The path was never away from me. It was always here." Narration described his breath deep, steady, filled with clarity. Samuel Hayes, Sophia Clark, and Daniel Lee stood below, watching him in reverent silence. Thomas Reed, at the heart of the courtyard, closed his eyes with a faint smile. The camera of the world pulled back, the temple becoming small against vast mountains. The breath of Ethan Cole merged with the stillness of the earth, eternal and whole.